Juancho.
Hi, my name is Perilla, and I'm with my co-hosts, Darille Alolor, Canda,
and Kristian Mendoza, who's also your cameraman for today.
and you're watching Marian Movie Reviews. Roll intro!
And welcome back to the show. Today we will be talking about the villains and their stereotypes in Philippine media.
So the movies we're going to review for today are Ang Provinciano from the 1990s, Mata sa Dilim from 2019, Birdshot from 2016, and Maria from 2019.
Yeah.
So, what's our aim today, guys? What do we aim to get out of this short talk show?
We aim to identify and view the stereotypes of the villains from these 4 movies.
That's actually really nice.
Yeah. And we're gonna start by, I guess, giving off a short description so that our viewers may get an idea of the films without having to watch all of them, right?
Yeah, I
So,
guess true.
Yeah, and I guess we're gonna start with the oldest to the newest. So, for our oldest,
Now, first of all, for Ang Provinciano, Ador, a police officer who died during a bypass operation, gets replaced by his twin brother Cardo de Leon, and now Cardo de Leon seeks out revenge by eliminating the corrupt policemen and the drug syndicates behind the operation, and of course those killers of his own brother.
And now for a second movie, we have Birdshot. The movie opens with Diego, a hacienda caretaker, together with his daughter, Maya. Diego is teaching his daughter, Maya, how to shoot a gun for self-efficiency. However, this is where Maya experiences her hardships because she thinks that she's not capable enough to shoot a gun, and she doesn't want to be alone yet. But later on in the movie, this is where the conflict starts. Maya ends up killing a Philippine eagle, or in the movie, they call it a haribon. And then all the consequences that comes together with killing the Philippine eagle happens, and all plots in the movie are based off that single event of killing the Philippine eagle.
our third movie was released just last year titled Ang Mata sa Dilim, which stars Derek Ramsey, Jessie Mendiola, and Joko Diaz. It revolves around the life of Sui, played by Jessie Mendiola, who is a girlfriend of Juancho, a notorious and powerful drug lord who is an abusive and manipulative boyfriend of Sui. Sui, being locked in a loveless relationship with him, of course, is desperate for escape. Things start to escalate when Juancho decides to kidnap Sui and lock her up on his personal island for so-called protection from his enemies. From there, Sui gets to know one of Juancho's bodyguards, Borgy, who is played by Derek Ramsey. Being trapped on a solitary island, they get to know each other, and they start to build a close friendship with each other, and eventually it blossoms into something else. Over time, Borgy is discovered to be an undercover cop and decides to pitch Sui in on his plan of dropping Juancho's name to the police and therefore also freeing Sui. So, in the movie, together, Sui and Borgy try their best to fight Juancho and escape his clutches in order to attain freedom.
For our next movie,
It's Maria.
So for Maria, basically it revolves around an ex-assassin for a drug cartel in the Philippines. Her prior name was Zilly. However, when she faked her death quitting the cartel, she was reborn as Maria. After faking her death, she now lives a happy life with her family, her daughter Minmin, and her husband Bert. Literal yung Bert pa her husband. Yeah.
My God.
Okay. However, after the cartel discovers that she's still alive, they go hunting for Lily, or now called Maria, and then her ex-partner named Caleb is the one leading the search against Maria. Throughout the movie, Caleb and the cartel goes through extreme means of finding Maria. They even go through torture and other types of stuff that are inhumane. So, at the end of the movie, I'm not gonna spoil it yet though, you should watch it. So, what should we talk about today, guys?
The villains.
Yes, the villains.
Yeah, the villains. Yeah, I guess that's what we're all about now. I guess let's try to pinpoint some of the traits in each of these movies' main antagonists. Let me start off probably with Ang Provinciano, since it's our oldest. The movie consists of two main antagonists. First is an unnamed drug lord, which was the one in control of the syndicate that killed Officer Dominador
De Leon.
Dominador de Leon, yeah. Weird. Okay. Skirt.
Okay. Skirt. Yes.
And the second antagonist is in the form of an inside cop named Major Sandoval, who is a major in the Philippine police and acts as the protector of the said drug syndicate. He also employs some of his lower officers in his illegal activities. Yeah. Okay. And now for the antagonist of our second movie, Birdshot, here's Mr. Trey Perilla to explain.
The antagonist for our movie, actually, sino ka ba antagonist sa Birdshot? Wala kasing antagonist eh. Sabihin ko na lang the main character.
The bird.
Kasi, pwede pag tinignan mo na other side of the coin, pwede maging protagonist si Maya. Kasi technically, may ginawa siyang mali.
What about Domingo?
Kasi pinatay niya yung bird,
What
which
about
started
Domingo?
everything.
Oh, well.
Pero,
How about Domingo?
si Domingo and Mendoza, they're focused, kung magtitignan mo on the other side of the coin, which is police brutality, kasi una, animal cruelty. And then when you flip the coin, it's police brutality. If you do that, ang masama, si Domingo at si Mendoza. Pero, pag tinignan mo sa, hindi actually.
Accident lang yung kay Maya, diba?
Nope, si Jar.
Signature.
Garo.
Pinatay niya even to prove her independence sa tatay niya. Anyway.
Like a comment.
I guess that gives a pretty good description of the so-called antagonist of Birdshot. I guess that's the difficulty of movies with their diversity. Not all movies have this one single entity as the antagonists.
Like showing both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Some movies just show this one-dimensional side of the villains that we all hate, but over time these movies start to be more creative and more innovative with their villain designs. They don't necessarily have to be this one guy that's bad, wants revenge and everyone wants to kill everyone. It sometimes can be in the form of even the main characters. Sometimes they can battle with their internal selves or whatnot.
Yeah. I guess that's the beauty of film.
So for our next movie, we have Mata sa Dilim. We have Canda and Mr. Darille Gherome Alolor to discuss the context of Mata sa Dilim.
Now for the villain of
Juancho.
Juancho.
Yes.
The abusive
Fat.
drug lord who imprisoned the poor little Sui in an island.
Yeah, sucks for her.
Now what do you think of Juancho, Mr. Kyle?
As I said, he's fat and I think he's really annoying. As a viewer who watched the movie, as every moment just made me hate Juancho more. Like, he married into another family, but the movie didn't really say what his motives were for marrying that girl. And he trapped Sui in an island. Like, who does that?
Nobody does that. Would you trap a person in an island?
Yes.
No! You wouldn't do that.
That ain't right.
Juancho is bad.
In a
He's
sense.
the bad guy.
No, not in a sense. He's
I'm the
really
bad
absolutely
guy.
evil.
Do
He
not
imprisons his
turn.
mistress. He runs drug lords. What?
Oh, he does right.
He's the drug lord.
He's the drug lord.
Yeah.
Yes, he operates in an illegal business. He has a separate island for those operations, and most importantly, he solves his problems through violence. Even in his relationship with Sui, he forces himself into her despite her objections. No. Forcing what? Forcing himself.
Forcing on onto her, not into her.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry for that.
This guy.
Please forgive me. Our cameraman here will edit that out. Do not worry. Now Juancho forces himself onto Sui despite her objections and her denials towards him. Because after finding out who Juancho really is, Sui stopped. Yes, she just stopped. No more feelings for Juancho because
Juancho was revealed to be a guy that Sui went out with for 4 long years, and it's surprising to see that Sui actually just dealt with this type of relationship that
despite being a mere mistress to Juancho.
yeah, just a side chick if you would put it in a way. And Juancho's always confessing his love for Sui, providing all the material wealth he could possibly give to Sui, but you know, Sui is really looking for a genuine and affectionate relationship instead of a
Instead of one that's just for money or for sexual pleasure.
Juancho forces a reciprocation of love from Sui because he reasons with paying for Sui's sister's education and for her mother's health, like that.
Parang sinusumbatan niya si Sui sa mga ginawa niya for Sui.
And that's Juancho of Ang Mata sa Dilim.
Yeah.
For our next one, which is
Our last movie.
Marian Movie Reviews. Anyway.
Yeah, Marian Movie Reviews.
So Maria, basically again, Maria is an ex-assassin from a drug cartel in the Philippines. Her assassin name, Lily. She threw that away long ago when she faked her death in an attempt to escape from Caleb, her former ex-assassin partner. So basically, Caleb has feelings for Maria. However,
Spicy.
yeah, that's really spicy. However, when he knew about Maria quitting the cartel to live a crime-free life, this made him devastated. And then a quote from the movie, he said, "I will find you, Lily, no matter where you go." That's what he said when Lily was about to leave him to live a crime-free life. Now, Caleb discovered that Maria, formerly Lily, was still alive. So basically, Caleb informs Ricardo, the leader of the cartel. He's a gurang. He's basically an old man with high endeavors. And he does nothing. Oh, he does everything to accomplish that endeavors, no matter what. Even when it involves torture or killing from what they call snakes in the movie, the ones that are apparently traitors to his eyes. Now, the movie basically revolves around Caleb hunting down Maria, or formerly Lily, and it's full of action scenes. Now, at the end of the movie, finally, Caleb and Maria meet at an abandoned pier. Pier yun, diba, right?
Yes.
The one with the boats and stuff, yeah.
Yep.
An abandoned pier. Now they battle to the death there, and I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, Maria, formerly Lily, wins the battle against Caleb. She slices the throat of Caleb. I don't know if that's too gory for you guys to watch. However, beware of the CGI in the movie. It's horrible.
It's like
I think that's the true villain of the movie.
like an Indian
Yeah.
movie. How would you describe the villain?
Who? Caleb?
He just
Along with Ricardo, describe those two.
Ricardo's a despicable man. And the same goes with Caleb because, in the movie actually, Caleb's the one who murdered Maria's family. He went over to Maria's house and then knocked on the door. When Caleb knocked on the door of Maria, Maria's husband, Bert, opens the door, and then as soon as he does that, Caleb takes hostage of Bert. Now, in an attempt to save Bert, Maria's daughter, Min, runs towards Bert, and then Caleb shoots Min in the face. There goes Maria's daughter. And then
goes
when Maria
the
saw that happen, she was furious. Actually, she raged and then she pulled out her gun from her pocket and then proceeded to shoot Caleb in the body. Now, fortunately for Caleb, he was wearing a bulletproof vest, which made him survive the situation. Now, with Maria killing all the other accomplices of Caleb, Caleb escapes and then informs the cartel that Maria is still alive and we're about to die because she's the best assassin the cartel has ever had. Basically, yeah, that's the movie. It's all about Maria and Caleb and the cartel.
Now let's head on to the bread and butter of our program. Let's start to discuss and slowly deconstruct the villain tropes among these 4 movies.
So to start off, I guess what I personally saw on these movies was that the villains were innately evil as the movie began. By that I mean no explanation or even a short backstory was given on why this villain became this person as time went on, and the movie just presented these people for the audience to demise.
Can I butt in a bit? So, what he said is kind of different in the movie Birdshot. One of the antagonists there, Domingo, he was initially a upbringer of justice. He was very assertive in promoting the justice and service in his community. However, as time went on and as the movie progressed, he slowly got corrupted by his partner Domingo. And you can really see the transformation from being a good guy to a bad guy when he led the torture of Diego, the hacienda caretaker, because he was suspected for killing the Haribon or the Philippine Eagle. Now, for the next trait,
Wait. This is a to note though, Birdshot is like an indie movie. The other 3 of our movies were mostly commercially successful movies, so it shows how most of the successful or more money-making movies often consist of these flat and I guess characters of less substance, which kind of reflects a little something about our media industry today. This leads me to my second point. Given that most 4 out of 4 of the films that we chose to analyze belong to the action and drama category, the villains in these movies often possess either mental or physical strength, which acts as the fuel, I guess, to most of the action scenes portrayed in the films. And additionally, this physical or mental strength possessed by them is also one of the driving forces of the conflict between the antagonist and the protagonist, giving the audience the feel or maybe even the fear that this antagonist is stronger than the hero, keeping them on the edges of their seats, thinking who would actually win. Although, as cliched as it seems, regardless of this mental or physical strength, the hero usually and almost always wins over the villains. Most of the time anyway.
Actually, in Birdshot, again, as I previously mentioned earlier, there's 2 sides to the story. You can determine which of the characters are the antagonists or the protagonists. But if you look into the if you put yourself in the shoes of Maya, the girl who was neglected by her parents, we could tell that she was kinda successful in her motives of proving her independence, because as soon as her father died, she was able to survive from herself and solve the mystery of the missing persons case that the police intended to cover up because they wanted to handle the Philippine Eagle case first, and they did not want to handle the case of the missing people. This shows that the movie Birdshot, it implies that the police in, let's say, the Philippines value the life of an animal more than the life of a person or people in Birdshot's case. Because in Birdshot, initially there was a case that said that the bus was supposed to go to Manila from a province. However, the bus disappeared and all the people inside the bus together with that also disappeared. Now, in the end of the movie, it was revealed that the missing people from the bus were all journalists, and they were buried inside the sanctuary for the Philippine Eagles. Now, That was the crime that the police was trying to cover up. They did not want to investigate any further on the missing people's case because they know about it, and they do not want to shed light upon it anymore because of the mystery that surrounds it. Now, seeing that happen, it is very obvious that they value the life of the Philippine Eagle more than the people who were missing from the missing bus case.
I guess in the case of Birdshot, the antagonists here, although antagonists in this movie aren't clearly labeled, given that it's such a good film, in the case of Birdshot, the power possessed by the antagonists were expressed in the form of institutional power, given that
The police force.
the police force. Yes, the police force were the ones portrayed as the antagonists, wherein, of course, they are police officers and have the right to bear arms and have the ability to shove other people around using their power, as portrayed by their manipulation of the journalists' death and disappearance in the bus case, and also their hunting down of Maya and all of that.
Now, for our next point, which is the extreme personalities portrayed by these villains, such as their to define first, these extreme personalities are the overly expressed sides or behavior shown by these villains, such as their menacing auras, the expressions, their behaviors, just psychologically or mentally, socially, mostly portrayed by psychopaths and sociopaths. Now, in the case of Juancho from Ang Mata sa Dilim, he mostly showed his side of being obsessive, abusive, and oppressive amongst his comrades, loved ones, and his enemies.
Yeah.
Anyone like that?
And also, I guess in the case of the Ang Provinciano, wherein both Major Sandoval, who is controlling and abusive of his lower officers, who he uses as his goons to do his dirty work, as well as the unnamed drug lord who uses most of his men to do his dirty job for him. Same with Juancho.
It's also ironic because the same goes for Major Sandoval's case, because he's also controlled by the unnamed syndicate.
Yeah, it's just a cycle of control and manipulation that goes on and on in the evil side of the people, the villains.
That's true.
Yeah.
And for our fourth point, villains often have connections with governments or any powerful law enforcement institutions that can cover up their evil doings.
Yeah. For example,
That's true.
yeah. For example, in Birdshot, and in what they call this, and in Ang Provinciano, wherein the antagonists are actually the law enforcement themselves. In Birdshot, in a more literal sense, while in Ang Provinciano, the cop is a corrupt cop who uses his powers to protect the drug syndicate he's associated with, and chooses to avoid having investigations on them or pursuing cases related to them. Yeah. And even goes to the extent where he uses his men to protect the syndicate itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about in the case of Maria and Sa Mata sa Dilim, do they have something like that too?
Yeah, actually, when the investigation was ongoing, when Caleb murdered Maria's family, the people of Ricardo, the leader of the cartel, are actually in the police. They were part of the investigation, trying to cover up the tracks of the cartel, wherein they tried to misidentify or mislead the actual investigators of the case to not pinpoint the crime to the cartel. I think that's the only event wherein law enforcement was involved in Maria. Yeah.
Yeah. Still evident.
But for Ang Mga Mata sa Dilim, I guess this kind of deviated a bit from that stereotype, since the law enforcement was a central plot in the story because
Borgy was a undercover cop.
yeah, he was an undercover cop who was trying to gather enough evidence to arrest Juancho. And we can say that it was successful, but it did involve getting Juancho killed and a bunch of his henchmen and also the other teammates of Borgy on the island. as they were going undercover for 5 weeks, as explicitly mentioned in one scene in the movie.
Yeah, although I guess there's still some sort of corruption because it mentioned there they found out about Borgy, right, in the later part of the movie.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe the only way they could have known that if they had a man on the inside of in the police, or maybe something like that. But I guess it wasn't that explicitly stated. Yeah, Kaz, right?
But in the Ang Mata sa Dilim, it can be turned into a different. But since it was already published, it can turn different by using Borgy as a puppet to distract the cops from them. But it could have ended like that in a different sense.
Yeah, but I guess they chose the more righteous type of plot wherein Borgy actually sticks to his duties. Yeah, despite the temptation of money and power from Juancho that he was receiving. And for our fifth point, these villains often rely on their henchmen to do their dirty work and often try their best not to involve themselves with the action and all that stuff. For example, in Ang Provinciano, the drug lord is, though closely observing his operations, he chooses to command and not participate in the direct gun-to-gun fight scenes. Also, in Ang Mata sa Dilim, Juancho, as implied by the title, Ang Mata sa Dilim implies to camera observance, wherein he monitors his operations remotely, wherein he can only command from the comfort of his home or from his vacation island. How about for Birdshot and Maria?
Oh, for Maria, actually, as I said a while ago, Ricardo has his men involved with the police in the investigation. You see, the dirty work involved in that is trying to cover up the tracks of the cartel. Now, Ricardo doesn't want to do that by himself. That's why he has his henchmen to do that for him. Now, again, another example in Maria is when Caleb orders his men, technically his men, but still under the command of Ricardo, to hunt down Maria. However, they were unsuccessful with that, seeing how all of his men died in Maria's house. That was the crime the police were investigating, actually, when all of Caleb's men died in Maria's house due to Maria, because again, she's a very skilled assassin. Now, in the case of Birdshot, actually, there's no implication of this trait in Birdshot because it's the antagonists themselves, and they have no upperclassman that commands them to do it. Basically, the henchmen are them, and also the boss of the henchmen are also them. So,
Don't they have like
nyo?
a superior police officer or anything?
No, the superior police officer just ordered them to disregard the missing persons case and just focus on the Philippine Eagle, and that's his only interaction with the main antagonists, Domingo and Mendoza. If you look at that side of the coin and not towards Maya.
I guess it's still expressed, but the same with the other, the past point that we indicated. It's expressed, but only subtly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's still present.
To add, for Ang Provinciano, Major Sandoval was ordered to silence Cardo de Leon. And by that, he did it by ordering his lower rank officers into doing it themselves instead of himself, which ended up unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
As it always ends for
Villains. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which leads us to our sixth point.
Where their henchmen are often unsuccessful with their orders. Which leads us to our sixth and last point, where when things go wrong, the boss or the main villain does the dirty work for himself already. So basically, like in the movie Ang Mata sa Dilim, when all of Juancho's henchmen died because of the ordeal they had with Borgy, he then steps out of his surveillance room in order to deal with Borgy himself, armed with a knife and a gun. Although he's still unsuccessful in this case because this follows the trope of the bad guy and good guy villain arc in a man-to-man scenario wherein when the good guy is almost seemingly defeated by the bad guy, they just I don't know, they just magically find a way to turn the tables yet again and resolve the story. So how about for the other movies, guys?
I guess this is true to in Ang Provinciano when Major Sandoval's goons fail in killing Cardo. By attacking his house, wherein he gears up and attempts to kill Cardo himself. And following the same arc as stated by Mr. Kyle, that in the last moment, wherein tensions are very high and it seems as if the hero will actually lose, finds a magical way, I guess in this movie, in the form of flying gun, which he slings up in the air and catches last moment, just milliseconds before Sandoval is able to shoot Cardo and escapes death. The hero wins and the villain loses. How about in Birdshot and Maria?
Oh, for Birdshot and Maria, actually in Maria, as I mentioned earlier, Caleb met up with Maria in the abandoned pier. That's when Caleb took matters to his own hands when he met up with Maria in the abandoned pier. Now this is because, again, Caleb's henchmen were unsuccessful in hunting down and killing Maria, so he did it by himself, which ended up unsuccessfully again because he died to Maria's hands. So now for in Birdshot, there's actually very little implication because the higher ranking police officer did not actually do anything to take matters into his own hands. He just let Domingo and Mendoza do their thing, which ended up into Mendoza dying to Diego's shotgun and Domingo escaping death because Maya spared him from death.
So basically, the main villains will do the job themselves when they see the heroes on the brink of victory.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's kind of ironic for Juancho, who had henchmen, a lot of them, and he outnumbered Borgy and Sui, but then
Still managed to lose.
he still manages to lose despite outnumbering them, and only steps in at the last moment when he's outnumbered. So that's kind of the funny thing there.
Did you also notice the showdown happened in the dark?
Oh yes,
Ang mata sa dilim.
yeah, and smart title, I guess.
In Birdshot, Maya shoots a birdshot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Ang Provinciano, he's from the province.
Yeah, Cardo's from the
Literally
province.
from
And
the province.
the assassin in Maria, you're right.
Her name's Maria.
Her name's Maria. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Before we proceed to our next segment, let's lighten up the mood by
Playing a game of Asintado, wherein we will show you one frame from one of the movies we have in selection today, and you will have to guess what happens next. Let's play a game of Asintado! And our first scene comes from the movie Birdshot. Here we see Maya in the forest aiming at a haribon. Now the choices of what will happen next are A. Girl will shoot the bird. B. Girl will be attacked by the bird. C. Girl will miss the bird. Or D. Bird will shoot the girl. Keep your choices in mind and let's find out what happens next.
Did you get that last one correct? If not, don't worry, we got 3 more. Now for our second scene from Maria. Here we see Maria and Caleb out in the rain, both with the intent to kill in their eyes. Now, what may happen? A. Girl will win and kill the boy. B. Boy will win and kill the girl. C. Neither of them kill each other. Or D. They both die. Let's see.
Should be obvious by now.
Now that's gory. Now let's go to somewhere a little bit more mild. Here is a scene from Provinciano and it's a bit weird. It's a picture of a gun mid-air. Now the context of this is that it was thrown by someone. Now, letter A, gun will fly through the roof. B, the gun will hit the roof and fire. C, the gun will be caught by the guy that threw it. Or D, the guy will be caught by the gun. Choose your answers now. Now that's some classic Pinoy action. Now for our last scene from Mata Si Dilim, here we see Juancho holding a rock up high with the intent of using it on Borgy. Letter A, guy will smash using the rock. B, guy will drop the rock. C, guy will be crushed by the rock. Or D, guy will be stopped from using the rock. Oh, that was amazing. Now I hope you enjoyed this segment, and let's get back to the show.
So, for our last topic, I guess we can discuss about the
Clichés.
cliches, what cliches we observed in these movies, and I guess our individual takes on what can be a better way of portraying villains. So, as we mentioned earlier, it's not always the case that you need a man-to-man setup in a story. Some movies, such as I don't know, cosmic horror, set the characters against another malevolent force from outer space or something. So that's like creative ways you can bend a movie and have a twist to it of some sorts. You don't always need to have this one-dimensional villain that everyone hates, does all the bad stuff, has henchmen, runs a crime syndicate, and goes off killing everyone. You don't always need that, because it might prove to be a predictable plot hole in your movie, because people might see it coming like, the bad guy is coming full force, but later on, boom, he just loses to the good guys.
Yeah. Or maybe another thing that they can do, aside from what he said, that man versus nature, I guess?
Yeah, man versus nature.
Yeah, man versus nature is maybe man versus an
Himself.
institution, or like in the form of Birdshot, wherein the villain is not a pointable person but is more of an institution. That's in a more political sense, but I guess in another way it could be, as what Gherome whispered to me, it could be man versus himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also in Birdshot, man versus himself is evident in the character of Domingo. Again, I mentioned earlier that he was a good guy upholding the justice and service in his community. However, as the movie progressed, he turned to the bad side because of the influence of his partner Mendoza, which is a very abusive and tormenting person, because again, he's the one leading the investigations all the time, and he's the what do you call this? What can you call someone who leads something?
A mastermind.
A mastermind? What else?
I don't know.
The ringleader.
The puppet master.
The puppet master. Okay, let's say he's the puppet master of torture scene in the movie, because again, he's the one who first initiated the torture on Diego, the caretaker of the hacienda. Now, because of this,
The hacienda.
Domingo was influenced by Mendoza, and then later on in the movie, Mendoza dies and Domingo lives. But if you take it into perspective, the new Mendoza could be Domingo, seeing how he's turned into a bad guy because of all the things that he's experienced as the movie progressed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice
So,
point.
I guess another thing that movies can delve into is actually looking more into the core of the villain's character. Like, explain why they were like that. Because some movies are really good at doing this. For instance,
For example, Thanos, in a more pop culture and a more Western perspective, it explains that Thanos, he's doing what he's doing because he's personally experienced firsthand the dread of overpopulation. So what he does, if you don't know Thanos, he's like a powerful being whose aim is to extinguish half of the life of the universe in order to maintain life itself, because in his planet it got overpopulated and in time turned to anarchy and the eventual disappearance of his planet due to overpopulation. And he doesn't want to experience that, so what he's doing is he's trying to kill half of the population of the entire universe.
So, on a lighter note, I guess we can use Despicable Me as an example, wherein in the first movie, Gru, seemingly the bad guy of the movie, just slowly transforms into a good guy, I guess, as he adopts the 3 children from the orphanage. But the movie's main antagonist, as you can say, I guess, is Vector. But in this movie, we're not really hating on the villain. Instead, personally, by the end of the movie, I wanted more from Vector because of his personality. And as a side note, he was given a short backstory, as it seemed like his father was actually
Gru's boss.
Yeah, Gru's boss, and it seemed like Vector was contesting attention from his father. So, anything to add?
To add, so in some movies, villains are not always what you seem. Villains are not totally villains from our own perspective, such as from the case of Thanos, from Mr. Mendoza's explanation, where Thanos believes what he's doing is right, but for those like the Avengers, they believe it's not.
Actually, that's another trait
Yeah,
of
that's another-
villains. Villains think that what they're doing is right, but in reality, in the audience eyes, it's wrong. Right?
So basically, villains are
Delusional.
Yeah,
okay,
some
sure.
villains are delusional when they are motivated by their principle to do certain things, and they're really motivated to get the job done.
Speaking of the end justifies the means, do you guys remember the movie Unthinkable?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also
We
a good-
really can say that. Who's Samuel Jackson again there?
Yeah, it's
H. We cannot say H is a villain, but because he is portrayed as the good guy doing what he's
Supposed to do.
supposed to do, although the means are bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are really bad.
Yeah, but I guess we're getting off tangent here now.
For context, H is a torturer.
Yeah.
yes
Yeah, and their mission is like to extract information from this jihadist terrorist who has planted bombs around the city, and they have to get their locations in time, which they do by torturing him. Okay, but I guess we're getting slightly off tangent now. I guess let's go back to the stereotypes to condense, I guess, what we were talking about a while ago. The cliche part of villains is that they're mostly one-dimensional, wherein they are what they call this, doing what's bad just because they're bad. And what we were talking about earlier is our suggestion that more films be portrayed in a way that villains are actually those who think that what they're doing is good, as portrayed by many Western films actually. But in the Philippines, I guess it's still kind of on the slow side.
Yeah, it's very linear in a sense
However,
because
I do
it's
like-
predictable.
Yeah, this one Asian director named
Boon Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho. Like, so of his movies I really like. First is
Bong Joon-ho.
Snowpiercer and Parasite.
Yeah.
Basically, both of these movies depict a class struggle. Snowpiercer being all basically there was a climate disaster globally, and it made the environment inhabitable. So the lower class stay by the tail of the train, and the upper class are at the front part of the train. Basically, at the end of the movie, it showed that the upper class actually need the lower class because some of the spare parts need to be replaced by actual human workers, while the lower class just wants a improvement in life quality. But the upper class contests this by mentioning that there is not enough supplies on the train. While in Parasite, it's a good movie, and surprisingly, there is no villain in the story. You cannot pinpoint a single villain in the story because all of the characters' motives are just contradicting each other constantly.
Yeah, but there is a sort of villain there, which leads to another stereotype wherein the villains are people. In the sense of Parasite, the villain there is actually labeled as Hope, wherein the parasite itself is Hope. For example, if you watch the movie Parasite, the hope of ano yung pangalan ng dad na na-strap sa ilalim ng basement?
Just name him Dad.
Yeah. For example, the
husband.
son of the poor family has this hope which he keeps on his head of someday being able to retrieve his dad from the from under the basement of the house where he's hiding. But his hope, which somehow keeps him going, is also the thing that keeps him complacent. It's just something that sits there but he doesn't act upon. Yeah, so I guess that's another cliche breaker there. What Bong Joon-ho did.
Another overused portrayal of them is they always aim for status, money, fame, anything that can uplift their confidence and their influence.
Or their ego, in a sense.
Yeah, they always want
And
ego.
because of this ego, one thing I noticed is that they are very loud. They're noisy with their intents. They make, like, some movies, they have villains that tell their plan right off the bat.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like one of the most cliche, the villain monologue.
Yeah, insert cliche villain monologue. Then while that's happening, the good guy gets a chance to hatch up a plan or a clutch save for them, I guess.
Now to synthesize and wrap things up a bit, let's talk about what our ideal villain is. What do you guys think is a villain for you?
Oh, for me, I think I want my villain to be a villain that the audiences love. Let's say in Money Heist. If you've watched Money Heist, it's all about the robbers taking money from the government. Let's say and the part 2 of Money Heist, they robbed the Bank of Spain. They held people hostage and tried to keep the people there as hostage and then get all the money from the bank. And for their own, let's say, what can you call a word for their own endeavors? Let's say put it to something like that. Now, as you can see, the audiences love the robbers and they hate the government for trying to stop the robbers from robbing the Bank of Spain. Now, as you can see, that's what my ideal villain is. Something that is loved by the audiences. Because imagine, a villain is rarely loved by audiences because typically they are evil and they bring hate towards the main character. Now, let's say in Money Heist, again, it could be the main characters are the robbers, but they're also the villains because if you put it into a moral perspective, the government is actually doing the right thing by stopping the robbers from committing crimes. But still, the audiences love the villains, which are the robbers in Money Heist. Now, for you, Khiele, what do you think is the ideal villain?
I guess for me, I want my villain to transform the good guy, like completely alter the personality of the main character, I guess, because I think it's an interesting plot to see on screen, and even when you read it, like when for example, we have the sci-fi movie on The Thing. Yeah, basically The Thing is an assimilating organism that can take on the forms of other humans, and the scientists on the research facility their morality just slowly cripples away. Like they can't trust each other anymore, and they're constantly in the question like, where is the alien and where is it gonna strike? That's on a little morbid note, but yeah, it's one that I do enjoy to watch and prefer to see. So how about you, Kristian? What do you prefer for your movie?
I guess one that makes you really question what you do. As they say, art comforts the disturbed and art disturbs those who are comfortable. I guess I want a villain who will make you question the things that you do, because most of the villains in the movies we portrayed are doing obviously wrong things, like those who kill, those who murder, those who rape, or those who do drugs or things like that. I've yet to see a villain that does things that questions the moral correctness of everyday things we do, or things that every person does. I guess one Filipino film that has come close to this, I guess very close to this, is the MMFF 2016 entry, and also one of the best MMFFs ever. The MMFF 2016 entry of Seclusion, which revolves around the story of a seminarian who is sent out to investigate the validity and the legitness of a so-called healing child, a miracle child who heals people, wherein in the end he discovers that this miracle child's healing powers does not come from God or from a holy source, but actually comes from an unholy one, and is wherein the devil uses that child to heal others and make them believe that they're praising God, wherein they're actually praising the devil. Yeah, and this movie still disturbs me up to today, where it makes me occasionally question my beliefs and their legitimacy. Like if this religion itself is right or wrong, or the concept of religion itself. Yeah, something that disturbs you. And given that this movie is already 4 years old and still disturbing me up until now, says something about that movie. Yeah, and that's what makes a good villain. Yeah.
Something that leaves a mark on you.
Yeah. Now, given that, for our last villain, best villain opinion, what would you say, Gherome, would be the best villain for your standards?
Well, I have two preferences. First is a villain that changes, or the villain that causes the change to the character.
Yeah.
It's like a villain that still retains a villain. For the first one, I prefer the one that villain changes by seeing the wrongness of his actions and seeing the beauty of everything around him or her. Example is from an anime called Dragon Ball Z. We know first of all Vegeta as a main antagonist, as he threatens the world, and Goku the protagonist. And then later on, he changed. He saw friendship. He saw beauty in Earth. He saw goodness in humanity. He saw love, like Bulma. Yes. And those are the kind of villains I would like. Such also from a cartoon called Steven Universe, where evil gems, diamonds, etc. they change because again they saw beauty in the earth, in its inhabitants, and the main antagonist like Steven, because Steven helped open their eyes, help them see the wrong and see the good. And basically those are the kind of villains that would like. The first type where they change, seeing good, seeing bad for reality. For the second one that causes the change, let's say Star Wars. They changed Anakin Skywalker like that. They totally corrupt Anakin. They made him change his viewpoints, his ideas, his code of ethics, where everything just changed for him. Where he used to believe this, now he uses to believe this. He uses to believe in Jedis, now he uses to despise Jedis. So those are the two kinds of villains I would really love to see, or the best kinds of villains for me.
Now that we've reached the end of our show, what are some takeaways that we could say to our viewers here?
So for me, it's just that the Filipino media could definitely use some spicing up with their villain designs and the overall plot of the story. So not everything is stagnant and stale, because even if you don't adhere to the stereotypical villain, I think it's still gonna be a commercial success, even though if it's not conventional, because sometimes unconventional is beautiful.
And better.
Yeah, it's better than conventional because you're not used to seeing these types of stuff.
And that makes people more interested actually.
Yeah, and I guess one more takeaway would be that from our inputs a while ago, I guess in a Tagalog sense, ang Filipino cinema, hindi lang siya pwede mag-improve, kundi kaya niya mag-improve. It's not only could, but it's more of can, given that there are already films that exceed and break the stereotypes that we cited a while ago. For example, Seclusion, or Goyo, General Luna, and Sunday Beauty Queen, and a lot more other good films that have been released in the past years, showing that the Philippines can improve, not only could. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, we
we
totally do get what you're saying.
And thanks for the support.
Now I think we've reached the end of our show. Again, my name is Perilla with my co-hosts.
Darille Alolor.
Canda.
And Kristian Mendoza.
And we'll see you again on the next episode of
Marian Movie Reviews.